For our abstract, a tariff is a levy placed on goods imports and exports by the government of the country or supranational union. Along with import and export quotas, tariffs are among the most regularly utilized mechanisms of protectionism. Countries may impose tariff as a form of retaliation if they believe a trading partner has broken the rule in the country. Besides, a subsidy is a financial or tax incentive offered by the government to individuals or enterprises to boost the supply of specific goods and services. Subsidies also enable consumers to obtain lower cost goods and services. Therefore, we can say that tariffs and subsidies, these two things are really important in a country. However, import tariffs are often charged to the importing country and registered at government customs. This makes import tariffs increase a country's import cost either in short term or long term. Thus, the purpose of this study is to examine the relationship between the rate of protectionism and tariffs, subsidies, and imports. Based on the study, secondary data, which is time series, had been collected from World Bank data for 31 years, which is from year 1990 to year 2020. The 10 countries were also selected to complete the research, and the data will be analyzed by using reviews in ADRL method. The expected findings of the study are there is a long-run relationship between the rate of protectionism and tariffs, subsidies, and imports in the 10 countries from year 1990 to 2020. In conclusion, the rate of protectionism will be affected by these three independent variables.
Assalamualaikum and salam sejahtera. I am Auni Binti Ali, S54634. I will present about specification table. In specification table, our subject area is economy, and for more specific, our subject area is tariff, subsidy, and protectionism. For type of data, we have tariff rate, subsidy rate, import rate, and protectionism rate. All data we show in table. All data that we have, we collect from WDI and World Bank. For format data, we have raw data, semi-analysis, and analysis data. We analyze our data using review software and result in ARDL. We also do some study with article and journal that we can relate to our topic, which is tariff and subsidy to import ratio. And many articles we found that we can use for reference to do this topic.
I'm going to explain value of data. First one is tariff. A tariff is a levy placed on good imports and export by the government of a country or a supranational union. Import duties can be a form of foreign trade regulation and policy that charge imported items to encourage or safeguard home industry. In addition to being a source of money for the government, along with import and export quotas, tariff are among the most regularly utilized mechanism of protectionism. Tariff can be either a fixed amount per unit, or imported products of a percentage of the price, or variable, the amount fluctuation depending on the price. Tariff encourage development of production and the substitution of domestic items for imported goods. The second one is subsidies. A government subsidy is a financial or tax incentive offered by the government to individual or enterprise to boost the supply of specific goods and services. Subsidies enable consumers to obtain lower cost goods and services. Markets with a positive externalities or additional benefits to society are more likely to be encouraged in policy to increase the supply of the item or service. A subsidy is a payment made to the receiving individual or corporate organization, either directly or indirectly. Subsidies are often regarded as a special sort of financial aid since they relieve a previously imposed burden on the recipient or encourage a specific action by providing financial assistance. Thirdly is import ratio. In economics and government finance, the import ratio is the proportion of a country's total imports to its total foreign exchange FX reserves. The reserve to import ratio is the inverted version of the ratio. The ratio is calculated by dividing a country's average foreign exchange reserve by its average monthly imports. A higher proportions of imports to FX reserve increases the likelihood of credit restructuring. A developing country will use its foreign exchange reserves to pay for imports. The more it imports, the more quickly these reserves are depleted. Import ratio are crucial for the economy because they allow a country to supplement its market with products from other countries. Lastly, rate of protectionism. Rate of protectionism is a term used to describe government policies that limit foreign trade in order to benefit home businesses. Protectionist policies are typically intended to boost domestic economic activity, but they can also be enacted to address safety or quality problems. Most protectionist measures target imports, but they can also affect other elements of international commerce, such as product standards and government subsidies. Tariff, quota, and subsidy are common instances of rate of protectionism or mechanism used to enforce a policy of protectionism. All of these techniques are designed to boost domestic businesses by increasing the cost or scarcity of foreign goods.
Malaysia, the World Trade Organization report states that Malaysia has cut its import tariff by almost one-half since 1993. However, the report states that high level of tariff protectionism remains in some agriculture subsectors as well as in the automobile industry. In Georgia, the government has carried out reformation of both the tariff policy and technical regulation, as a result of which Georgia currently has one of the most liberal foreign trade policies in the world, which means a simplified foreign trade, low import tariff and a minimal non-tariff regulation. Georgia's simple average tariff makes up to 1.5%. Belgium, at this stage, it seems that the wage moderation policy introduced in recent years, intended in particular to promote Belgium's cost competitiveness, has not managed to reverse the trend towards less dynamic exports. The reason is related to the price elasticity of Belgium export, which is relatively low. In the Brazilian case, growth was possible with high tariff because Brazil's main trading partner, the United States, had the highest average tariff rate among the countries. For an example, Brazil's major export is coffee, supplied about 75% of world consumption, and the United States could have raised tariff on this product without lowering consumption. In Canada, it has been estimated that more than 35% of Canadian economy is protected by some form of protectionism. For an example, the Canadian economy does not allow free movement of goods and services between provinces.
Australia, import grew steadily from 1990s until the early of 2000, averaging 7.7% annual growth in value terms. This announcement of the phase down of general tariff rate over 4 years from 1992 to 1996 from 15 and 10% to a single rate of 5%. The trend of subsidy rate in Australia is unstable. The trend of subsidy rate from 1990s to 2020 has both increased and decreased. Denmark has been reported constant trade surplus since 1988. Denmark imports mainly machinery and equipment, raw materials and semi-manufactures of industry, foodstuff and chemicals. Denmark has historically maintained a non-barrier policy and is often in the lead in the international fight against the non-tariff barrier. The investment subsidy between the 1990s was instrumental in achieving such a rapid expansion of the capacity. France, import of goods and non-factor services in 1993 declined by 3.4% with a sharp fall in the first half and virtual stagnation in the second half. France, as a member of the UE, followed the common UE weighted average tariff rate on selected import. The aim of this broad tendency is to individualize the social subsidies strengthened throughout the 1990s and the 2000s. Germany, during the last 5 years, the import of Germany has increased to raise an annual rate of 6.1 from 842 billion in 2009 to 1.13 trillion in 2014. Since trade expansion in 1990s was strongest with an emerging market of Southeast Asia and Latin, the feed-in tariff in Germany has been officially introduced since January 1st, 1991. Feed-in tariffs are no longer linked to average consumer prices but based on generation cost. During the 1990s, Germany charges a higher tariff, lower subsidies for coal and mining, privatization of huge Eastern German energy firm. Ireland in 1988, government grant and subsidies were raising profit rate in Northern Ireland relative to Great Britain above their expected level. After the removal of tariff protection, import penetrate was rapid, and in this higher competitive international environment, both tariff and both the trade costs for an important class of the goods and services has declined to a very low level in the 1990s.
Hello, my name is Ahmad Zikril Arif bin Rahman, S54418. For the data analyzed, we are collected all data through internet in Source World Bank and analyze data using the views in ARDL model in long run. For Malaysia, rate of protectionism basically increased from 1990 to 2020. Although there is an occasional decline, it is because the government of Malaysia is increasing the protectionism of import to protect local industry and start to produce local products. For Georgia, rate of protectionism is increased in 1991 and became the highest protectionism over 30-year study. That is 2.05% protectionism. It is because the government policy want to reduce greenhouse emission with reduced import and encourage the green technology, especially for local industries. Then for the Belgium, rate of protectionism in 2020 is 1.1%, increased slightly at past year 1.07%, as much as 0.04%, and not give big impact for the local goods and industry because have already take big impact of pandemic COVID-19. That was it affect small and large trader of company. But the highest rate of protectionism is in 1993, that is 1.36%. It is because the government strive to protect local industry from European country. At this time, automotive industry is outgoing from other countries in Europe, such as United Kingdom, France, Germany, Italy, and so on. So the government policy increased the protectionism import to protect the local automotive industry and give budget to develop local automotive industry. However, for Brazil, rate of protectionism is also have the highest rate in 1990, that is 11.09%. It is because in line with the increase in import, the government also imposed the import protectionism policy. This is because to balance the import gap that has been done before, so that the local industry can compete and help the environment. And then for Canada, rate of protectionism also quite high in 2000 to protect the environment and local industry. The highest rate of protectionism in Canada in 1991, that's 2.52%. It is because the government is focusing to green technology project to protect the environment. For example, in British Columbia was the first province in Canada to implement a green technology policy. This province implemented a revenue neutral carbon tax. The objective of tax are encourage individuals, business, industry, and others to use less fossil fuel and reduce greenhouse gas emission. Send a consistent price signal, ensure those who produce emission pay for them, and also make clean energy alternative more attractive. So the government is very committed to reduce carbon emission with empty emission by 2030.
My name is Wan Xin, and now I will talk about the data of tariff, subsidy, import, and the rate of protectionism for another 5 countries, which is Australia, Denmark, France, Germany, and Ireland from 1990 to 2020. The tariff rate in Australia has dropped from 1990 to 2020, and the reduction of tariff has led to the economy in Australia become more open. There's an increase of subsidy rate as well in overall. The macroeconomy states that the higher subsidy will rise the export and drops the import. But the lower tariff rate of import helps to consist the import rate to not decrease highly. The protectionism rate in Australia was show a decrease from 1990 to 2020 as well. The protectionism major consequence is a decrease in commerce, higher pricing for particular items, and a type of subsidy for protected sectors. The higher rate of protectionism will restrict the country import rate. And the second one is Denmark. The import rate for Denmark was recorded and increased because of the economic growth strength has grown the import. Denmark has maintained a no-barrier policy for a long time and is frequently in the forefront of the worldwide battle against non-tariff barriers. The tariff rate in Denmark was severely decreased, thus the import rate will increasing. There is about 77% of subsidy rate decline in Denmark from 1990 to 2020 and indicates that the import rate has not affected by the subsidy rate. The use of subsidy rate will cause the local supply boost the domestic output to the target level while decreasing the import. And we found that the protectionism rate has dropped from 1990 to 2020 as well. The new economy minister said that Denmark economic progress might be threatened by the protectionism because Denmark is one of the countries that most dependent on international trade. Fortunately, the rate of protectionism in Denmark was recorded lower over the years. And the third one is France. The tariff rate in France was dropped from 1990 to 2020 and it has caused an increase a little in import level. However, the subsidy rate for France has increased. According to the macroeconomic theories, Higher subsidy will supposedly increase the domestic production and the demand for domestic product, thus reduce the import rate. But there is still having an increase for import rate between 1995 to 2020. This is most likely because the decrease of tariff rate is bigger than the increased subsidy rate. It shows that the subsidy rate does not have the potential to reduce the import rate in France. There are some of the French people considered that France should maintain or expand the trade barriers to shade the enterprise from importing goods from the foreign rival, even if this has a detrimental impact on French consumer and export producer. However, the rate of protectionism in France was still declining. And the fourth is Germany. The cross-border movement of goods and services is not regulated in the theory. However, for a variety of reasons, particular import limits apply to certain items, for example, agricultural product, medicinal product, and chemical. The tariff rate in Germany has reduced, and this indicates that the import rate will increase. They are having an extremely increase for Germany's subsidy rate from 1990 to 2020. And there is also have an increase for protectionism rate as well. This represents that the protectionism has caused the import rate decrease. And the last one is Ireland. The tariff rate in Ireland was recorded a decrease from 1990 to 2020. And according to the International Trade Administration, Ireland implemented the Europe tariff based on the worldwide harmonized system of product classification. There is an extremely increase of the import rate in Ireland, which is having an overmuch change. This can be concluded that the lower tariff rate has developed the import in Ireland. However, the subsidy rate has decreased from 1990 to 2020. There is a negative relationship between import and subsidy, as the drop of subsidy will lead to an increase of import rate. The protectionism has run its course because it had become an inefficient drag on economic activities. Hence, the decrease of protectionism rate has indicated that the increase of import rate.
According to a working paper by Anderson, the paper has reviewed the history of Australia's extreme protection from import competition since 1900. Australia is one of the most advanced nations in the world when it is concerned to enforcing protectionist policy. Import tariffs were raised until the 1918. Increasing tariff has raised the burden on the import industry, raising in a drop in per capita income compared to other nations, and the country is ranking for the per capita income has dropped to 25 or lower in the late 1980s. Well, protectionism has attracted global investment and raised Australia's gross domestic product (GDP). Local rule has inhibited production. Australia has established itself as one of the largest exporting countries with a competitive advantage in primary product as a result of its rich and diverse natural resources. Following trade policy debate and reform in the late 1980s, several import tariffs were eliminated and replaced with import quota. As a result, Australia began to open up its border in the 1980s. In his country, such change has resulted in rapid economic growth and better living standards. Such development demonstrate the benefit and drawback of trade protectionism. Protectionists should not be placed at either a high or lower level in order to avoid trade the advantages for the country. Thank you.
A very good day to everyone. I'm Chang. Today I would like to explain about the experimental design, materials and method about the research topic, tariff and subsidies to import ratio, the rate of protectionism indicator. So, according to February 2021, the international trade has seen an impressive growth since 1950 century, which due to the lowering of the trade barriers. This brings the trade liberalization to several countries. However, the oil crisis during 1973 has resulted in the worldwide recession and impact on the trade liberalization become regress. This gave the chance that the protectionism with imposition of many non-tariff barriers. Gregory used to investigate the long-run relationship on the international trade and the protectionism by the subcomponent of the KRF Globalization Index. The variables are the GDP and import intensity adjusted demand IAD. The Gregory found that the GDP gave the bigger effect on the international trade compared to IAD. The protectionism elasticities are always negative and significant, in which shows that the trade policies still play an important role on the world trade to GDP. However, in long run, the protectionism's influence cannot be overestimated, since the rise of the KRF indicator related with decline of world trade that is less than half that of an equal increase the relative import price. That's all from me. Thank you.
Next, materials and method. The purpose of this study is to investigate the relationship between the rate of protectionism and tariff, subsidy and also imports. This research also concentrated on 10 countries. In terms of research gaps, this study was conducted from 1990 to 2020. This study is also based on a time series with 31 observations. The World Data Bank provided all secondary data. The rate of protectionism was chosen as the dependent variable. Tariff, subsidies and also imports are all independent variables. The autoregressive distributed lag model method was conducted in the study. This research primarily investigates the relationship between the rate of protectionism and tariff, subsidies and import in 10 countries, specifically in the long run from 1990 to 2020. Protectionism's main impact is on trade, prices for certain goods and a form of subsidy for protected industries. The rate of protectionism is affected by all three independent variables.
For our acknowledgement, first and foremost, lots of praise and thanks to the Almighty God for His showers of blessings which enable us to complete our research report successfully. Besides, we would like to express our special thanks of gratitude to our subject lecturer, which is Dr. Hazman bin Samsudin, for this assignment of subject International Economics. He has guided us and also give us some beneficial advices and motivate us also all the time to help us to complete our assignment report. We are really appreciate and grateful that he is willing to sacrifice his time to have some free time to review and comment our report before we finalize it. It was a great privilege and honor to have him as our guidance.